Yes, sir.
When did you fall in love with wrestling?
When did I fall in love with wrestling? It must have been around, I was 6 years old, and I saw it on TV. Quebec, where I'm from, Montreal, Quebec, Canada, is immersed in the history of pro wrestling. Pro wrestling has been here with the Ledukes, the Rougeaus, a few other. There was a couple of brothers back in the 40s. So wrestling was predominant on our Saturday morning. Not only will we be getting WWF, but we had a local promotion here that was big in Quebec called International Wrestling, and then there was Maple Leaf Wrestling. So I was watching that, and at that time also, just before watching that, I got into comic books. I'm a big comic book head, and at 6 years old, the first comic book I ever had was the Justice League, and all the different characters, and I just found a correlation very quickly between pro wrestling, the pro wrestlers, and the superheroes. They both wore tights, they both wore underwear over their tights, they both had long boots, and they both did, very athletic, acrobatic things. So the minute I saw that, for me as a 6-year-old, I saw that as like comic books come to life,
Right.
and I've had a love affair with it, and it hasn't stopped now.
Absolutely. Now, you just hinted on a few minutes ago the wrestling scene in Quebec, Canada, and just Canada in general. And you mentioned some of the royal families, man. How do you think Canadian wrestling stacks up in the realm of wrestling, in the wrestling world?
I think it stacks up very well. Some of the best wrestlers came from Canada. Canada has a reputation, a lot of it has to do with the Bret Hart and the Dungeon, that the quality of wrestling. We're into, transitions of holds, telling good stories, being tough individuals. So, wherever I've gone all over the world, I had an opportunity to either wrestle or do seminars. As soon as people found out I'm from Canada, they were quicker to, be more attentive. And like I said, there's so many wrestlers from Canada, great ones. Like I said, the Ledukes, the Rougeaus. Even currently right now, we got Sami Zayn, we got Kevin Owens. We've had in the past, world champions such as, Bad Dog Vachon, the Vachons. He was an AWA world champion. Terry, is it Jimmy and what was it? Jimmy Garvin and Terry Garvin? I think it was Ron Garvin. Sorry, Ronnie Garvin. A lot of people don't know that, he's from Canada. He was an NWA champion. And of course, there's Chris Benoit. And then you have you have the Hart Foundation. And there's so much people traveling from other places, whether it be Japan or Canada, to come and to wrestle in Canada. And by doing that, there was a sharing of knowledge. There was a sharing of techniques. And we were able to take this from Japan, this from England, this from the United States, and we made it our own. You know what I mean? And we've been consistent forever.
Absolutely.
You mentioned some really good names, some really big names, but the two that sticks out the most with a lot of people that are watching wrestling now would be Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. And I've seen videos of you guys having Kevin Owens come to the school and speak to the students. What does something like that mean to you and to the students, to have someone that has made it out of, from Canada, made it onto the big screen, the big stage, and to come back and share his wealth of knowledge back to the students?
Well, it's a really good thing for a couple of reasons. Kevin Owens has a perception of a mean asshole, but he's anything but, you know what I mean? Like, there's one thing as the persona, but Kevin Owens, the person, he's very giving, and he'll let you know, when you've done something good, and he'll let you know when you've done something bad. He's like a straight up shooter, but he'll acknowledge what you've done. Like, I've said this on many podcasts before, and I helped him prepare for his WWE tryout. So he was here for about 2 months at my school, and doing everything. All the beginners were doing basic fundamentals, all the grunt works, hundreds of Hindu squats, push-ups, and all that. And he never complained. And at that time, he was a former ROH, world champion, traveled all over the world, considered one of the kings of the independents. And as soon as he got signed, he came back and he told me, and he's like, yo, I want to talk to your students. And he just told my students on numerous times, because he came about 3 times. The first time after he signed the contract, he was telling my students, listen to your coach. He knows what he's doing. And then he won the Intercontinental Championship. And once again, he came back, talked to my students, told them, listen to Drew, this is what I'm doing. And then when he became the Universal Champion, he came back again. So, every time he had an opportunity to, he could have been, it was during the holidays, he could have hung out with family, and I'm sure he did and did stuff, but he found time to come back. And it was rewarding because it's validating. It lets me know that I know what I'm saying, what I'm doing makes sense. And for him to trust my tutelage and listen to me and applied what he got from me. Plus, with his knowledge and application of wisdom, as we mentioned before, he busted his ass. I had a chance to, and I've never said this before, but I had a chance to be at the Performance Center and speaking to Matt Bloom. He brought up Kevin Owens, and he said the one thing that impressed him was his work ethic. He wasn't going to let anything bother him. He wasn't like what they would consider the traditional cookie cutter physique, but he came in there and he busted his ass and he was coachable. So I think that was very important. And Sami Zayn, a lot of people don't know, like his 10th wrestling match ever, he fought me. And at the time I was a champion at an independent promotion. And whereas Kevin Owens, the minute I saw Kevin Owens years before, I knew he was going to go to the WWE. With Sami Zayn, I didn't think, it wasn't a thought. Like I didn't see him as much as I saw Kevin Owens, but just his 10th match and how much of a ring general he was. Like he was telling me, and at that time I must have been wrestling 3 years. You know what I mean? But he's like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna do this and this and this, da 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 da. And I'm like, slow down, grasshopper. I was listening to what he was saying, and I'm like, okay. And when we got in the ring, I could have swore I was wrestling somebody who's wrestled at that time just as much or ahead. He just had it. So, and just before he left and he got signed, because we didn't have that interaction. He didn't come to my school, but I told him, I saw him at a gym, a local gym, because we both live in the same city in Laval. I saw him and I was telling him, you know what, dude, you inspired me to go back out, because and when I mean going back out, travel the world. And because I was doing that early, like I was one of the first ones here to be consistently, I'm going to England, I'm going to Ireland, I'm going to Japan, I'm going to, trying to apply my trade, because, and I'll explain that when I ran into Eddie Guerrero, and Eddie Guerrero told me, there's 2 ways of trying to get it to get to the majors or get to where you go. You got to travel as many places as possible so people can see you. It's almost like a presidential election. You know what I mean? You want to be president, you got to go to, Kansas, and then you got to go to North Carolina. Then you got to go to New York. You got to let people know who you are. So by the time, it's time for them to see you, they'll see all your accolades, where you've been, what you've done. So I stopped for a while, but then watching him, I was like, yo, it made me inspired. So I told him that. And he goes, that's funny, because he goes, you were the reason why me and Kevin felt that we could do what we could do, because we were watching you when you were traveling to England, when you were traveling to Ireland, and we were like, if Drew can do it, we can do it. So, it's almost like a full circle.
You never know who's watching you, or how you might indirectly influence people around you.